Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we could not be more excited to preview and build up Carlton's semi-final clash against Melbourne at the MCG on Friday night, a decade since our last semi-final, and it's actually the furthest game in a final series that both of us have witnessed. It's happened twice. Unfortunately, we haven't got the win. We haven't seen Carlton progress further. So we are beyond excited and pumped to see the Baggers finally do that with a big win against Melbourne. But Lockie, how are you, mate? And, you know, it's Thursday night. We are one day before the big game. How are you feeling about it all?
Feeling very good. Thank you, mate. Very excited to be chatting tonight. I think this week's gone really quick for me. I couldn't believe when Vossi's presser came out today. I was like, oh my God, teams are coming out tonight. It's right around the corner. So can't wait. 24 hours and we'll be there.
It's interesting you say that. I hadn't thought about that at all, but last week felt very slow. It was the longest week of my life. Even though I wasn't as nervous as I thought I would have been leading up to it. It wasn't really like this tense, anxious week for me last time. It just was ridiculously long. It was like, I just want the game to happen. Whereas it feels as if yesterday was the game, the last game. It's insane how quick this week has flown by. And there's been a lot of discussions on a lot of things that I'm very keen to get into. But probably the biggest one, the big talking point for the Carlton Dees clash this week is all around where people have sat on the ladder and what this means for either team. And big question, is this a free hit for Carlton? Is that how you're seeing this game? Really keen to hear your thoughts on this because some people are just saying, look, we didn't expect to maybe make finals at a certain position. We weren't top four. We made finals. We got the win. Are you happy enough with that?
God, it's so hard to this is such an easy thing to say in hindsight, but not like before the game for me, because I think we spoke a bit last week. Like we were both feeling pretty chill in the lead up to the game. And I kind of wondered, is that because there's like a little part of us that deep down is happy that we got here? And therefore, if we do lose, it's like, it's not the end of the world. We at least made it. And I'm wondering if there's still that part of me now.
Yeah.
I want to say that I don't believe that this is a free hit. And it's like all the things we want to impact finals. I genuinely do still think we can win the flag. So it's not a free hit in that regard. But yeah. Ooh. How's that for a fence sit?
I don't think it is. I feel as if you've said it kind of is a free hit for you, or that's how you're maybe seeing it, which I'm happy because
it depends. I guess you have to define it. I guess you have to define what a free hit is. Does that mean that it's not it's a success if we lose this game by 50 points, a successful season?
It's hard, I guess, to 100% define it. I think I do agree with you in the sense of, look, if we end up losing the game, I'm still going to be content enough because from the position we were in, we made finals. We got the finals win, which I think we needed. And it's hard to obviously keep progressing and make a grand final outside the top four. It's always going to be a challenge. And you're going to be happy to some degree looking back on the season for so many moments. However, I feel like you just, and we've touched on this previously, 10 years since the last time we played finals. You don't know what next year's going to bring. You've kind of just got to take your moment. So for me, this isn't the free hit. Also, I think in the sense of, I think we can beat Melbourne. This game is such a winnable game for me. I don't see it as a free hit. Whereas I guess if we win this one, go and play Brisbane over at the Gabba. Very tough to get it done. Still would want us to progress and take our chances, but that one's a bit more of a free hit. Whereas this kind of feels like the moment's right. We've got to keep going while we can. You never know what will happen in 2024. We've just come off the back of a 9-game winning streak to get us into finals, playing some of the best footy we've ever seen a Carlton side play. I think you've just got to take that momentum, go as deep as you can into finals and not take that for granted and say, look, we've won one final. That's good enough. Who cares what happens Friday? I know that's probably not exactly how you're seeing the free hit, but that's why I'm sitting in the camp of If we win this, then you could say Brisbane's the free hit. But I guess if we win, you'll probably hear me back next week saying, no, we've got to beat Brisbane. This is the opportunity. So it's very interesting, but I think expectations are higher than this game, win or loss, doesn't really factor in.
And then if we do end up beating Brisbane, no one's going to be like, oh, well, the grand final's a free hit. Like, so it's a weird concept in itself. But I think I personally think it's okay if someone is saying that they're content with the fact that if we lose this game, they're still proud of everything that got us to where we are.
Yeah, and I think that that's definitely how we would both be. If the worst case scenario happens, we don't progress past the semi-final, you look back, you reflect after the disappointment settles, and you go, look, really good season in the end. Finally made finals, finally got the win, and we build for next season. Yep. But after getting a taste against Sydney, I want more, and I want another finals win, particularly when I think it's super, super possible. Talking about this game, Melbourne, I think, are the ones that are maybe under a lot more pressure, as we've just touched on. I'm not saying free hit for Carlton. It's not a free hit for Melbourne at all, considering if they lose against us, it will be 2 years in a row that they have exited finals in straight sets, with all 4 of those games being played at the MCG, 2 of them as well being to interstate sides from last season. So it is a very interesting one. And the question off the back of that is, do you think this plays into our hands, or is this almost more important for us to get the win because there's no pressure on us to win? And whereas I guess next year, there's going to be more pressure on us to go deeper into finals. And this is, I guess you could say, free hit in the way that there is no pressure. The pressure is off us. So do you think the straight sets for Melbourne plays into our hands or their hands a little bit with the way the pressure will be on for us next year?
You know me, mate. I've got to be optimistic and just be blue-eyed about this. I definitely feel like it's a good position for us to be in, to be the underdogs, first time in a while. And yeah, their backs are against the wall. They're a bit injury depleted, all the drama during the week. But it is funny. I was talking to a friend of the show, J-Rob, on the phone earlier today.
Big listener.
He's still cruising around Europe. He is like, gee, you have to win a lot of games in a row, don't you, if you don't finish in the top 4? Like, yeah, you're not wrong. You do. It really is a very different ball game if you can either win that first prelim, win the qualifying, or only have to win 3 in a row. So I definitely like your point that there would be more expectation on us next year. So it would be great for us to get this one done. I don't think you can really argue that there's more pressure on the Dees this week. It would be catastrophe if they lost to us tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's a big, big chance as well, which is the good thing. I do agree with you there. It's a big thing for us that Melbourne are under a lot of pressure, and you just wonder, knowing that there's going to be a lot more Blue supporters there as well. It's their home game. It's not going to feel like that in the stands. Not going to feel like that on the field. Just how much that potentially plays into the game if it's a close one. Do Melbourne start to panic a little bit, thinking, oh no, like this is it. We can't possibly lose this. The pressure's off Carlton. But equally, I think this is such a big opportunity for that reason. There isn't that pressure on us. And if we aren't to progress and make the most of that momentum, who knows how you handle that next year. But I guess you have seen Carlton, with so much pressure this season, still find a way to get in a win streak, turn the season around, and make and win finals when we were the favourites last week. So I do kind of still back us in to be able to handle pressure either way. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. And we'll go straight into our favourite segment for our build-up shows. It is the What Do You Want to See segment. So I'm keen to get your What Do You Want to See, Lockie? And also one from the listeners as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, what do you want to see from this game? Obviously, it's the win. Park that to the side. We're looking for the little moments. Is there something in particular, a moment from an individual player? Do you want to see a certain stat line go our way. Whatever you want to see that isn't just the win, drop it in the comments on YouTube. And if you're listening in audio form, hit us up on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. Links to all of that will be in the description. But Lockie, Carlton versus Melbourne, semi-final. What do you want to see?
Well, it kind of ties into the win, I guess. So, this one's a bit off the top of my head. So feel free to come at me if you think that this one doesn't make sense. But thinking about if we were to win this game and thinking about our forward line being a bit depleted and I guess the defensive strengths that Melbourne have, I want to see Melbourne kick a low score, which may sound simple, but I feel like if this is going to be a high scoring affair, that makes me feel a bit worse about it. I feel like our best chance is if we can play the defensive game of our lives, their forwards continue to fail to stand up. That's our best chance. So I'm going to say less than 60. If we can get less than 60 points from Melbourne, that's what I want to see. I think that's a W.
You have absolutely saved it there by going really specific with the exact score number, so we can get
what I
that
want to see
as
60.
the clip for next week. But yeah, on paper that sounds so dumb. Like I want them the opposition to kick a low score, but in context, it totally makes sense. I do like that one because the last thing you want to see, even if we do go on to win, is Melbourne kick a lot of goals with the forward line issues that they currently have. So I love that backing in the defense for it to be a low scoring contest. I haven't gone maybe ridiculously specific in a game style way to win this game. I probably had a bit more fun with mine this week. So I'll go the one that's a bit more football related first. It is if we get out to a lead like we did against Sydney, don't let them back in. I do not want it to then become a close game after we've gone to 30 points up in front, which is a tough one in finals. I think every game that has ended up being a decent contest, a team has gotten out to a bit of a lead and the other ones have brought it back. But I'm hoping this week we can just keep pushing that out and make it a comfortable 50-point win.
That is the most optimistic. What do you want to see ever? I love it. Not only will we get out to a big lead, but they will not even chip into it. I love that.
It was a bit more confident. Of an if we get to that stage like we did against Sydney.
Yeah, I know. I'm putting
which we know is going to happen anyway because we're the baggers and we're going to get the W. I just don't want to see it happen again. I don't want to have to be sitting there at halftime all happy. Get going, do I get another pie? Do I have something else to eat? This is lovely. What else do I do? Because we're up and about. And then all of a sudden, regret that potential decision because I start to feel sick as it becomes a tight contest. I don't want that scenario. But Lockie, what else do you want to see from this game?
Oh, God, I only had one prepared. Give me your other one while I think.
Okay, I'll go my other one. This was my fun one because I had Cripper for the goal last week, which ended up coming true. So I'm trying to think of what else I can maybe manufacture, what else I can conjure up. And I was looking at the team, trying to find out what moments do I want. Well, Doherty got his goal last week. So what is there that would really get me going in the stands? And there's only one thing I could really think of because I'm not sure we've really seen it as much this year. Thinking back to previous seasons, one of the big moments to look back on when we used to have the little commentary intros, when you'd look back for the highlights, was a big Sam Walsh goal and an even bigger Sam Walsh goal celebration that you don't know what he's going to whip up. And it just gets you going because you're like, where have you gotten that one from? Have you had that in your locker for like 6 months while you've been waiting to kick a goal? Was that a on the spot kind of thing? Very excited for Walshy to put one through the big sticks and then give me a rogue celebration.
That's good. I can't even think of one this year. Can you think of a good one?
And that's kind of what I was thinking as well with Cripps last week. Couldn't think of a big goal he'd kicked where he had in previous years. So I think there's something in this for Walshy to go bang and give us something special.
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is, I guess, not really game related. You touched on it before. I really want to see like the Carlton army in full
Mm.
force like it was last week. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't talk about this in our bloody 4 hour episode we did last week either. But how silent was it when like Sydney like were moving the ball up the ground or at times? Like it was the quietest that I've heard the footy too at times. I'd love us to be able to, keep that raucous energy throughout the whole game. And a repeat of last week is what I'm after.
Yeah, there were definitely moments where it got a little bit tense. It got a little bit quiet. However, I will state that I did enjoy the jeering that started to get built back up. There was a few moments, I think sort of third quarter, where we started to shit ourselves a little bit collectively, myself included, as fans, and got a bit quiet. And then all of a sudden we just started to pipe up, but slowly built. And as soon as Sydney were trying to conjure something in their forward line, even if there wasn't any pressure, we'd start to go trying to hopefully make them stuff something up, start to fumble. Love that. I think we really need to bring the negative jeering side of the energy when the opposition has the ball. Just try to drown them out with noise, have no idea what they're going to do with it. Don't give them time to think, because a very loud fan base, and it built up nicely. But after last week, there's going to be even more that have arrived this time. I think we're going to top the decibel levels from last week.
Do you have any thoughts on the Carlton slow chant?
I've seen it go two ways. I firstly loved when we did it because it was immediately to piss off Sydney for their bullshit slow chant. We're like, hang on a minute. You're going to give us the slow, arrogant chant. We're going to do it for you. I don't mind it. I like us to have something more than just what we do currently. I think I've been a little vocal on this for a while. The Carlton, it's fine. We need something more. We need something. And this is the thing. In English soccer, a lot of the chants tend to start for, at least I'll say for Liverpool, you'd go and play some team in the Champions League in Europe. You'd go to God knows where. They'd be singing a song to some tune in a language you don't know. You come back and go, that was a good tune. I'm going to steal that song and make our own one out of that as a bit of banter. And then all of a sudden, all these massive songs kind of grow that way. Maybe that's what we've kind of done here. And maybe that'll be something that sticks. I don't mind it. I think the more chance we can have, the more different avenues we can go would be great. I would love, before I get your thoughts, I'm very keen to hear what you have to say. I feel like it's going to be controversial, which I'm excited for. But because we've got this now like 7-nation army thing that we've tried to introduce before games, which has gone down pretty well, is there a way we can get some lyrics to this? Now, I'm probably not the person to come up with anything, and I'm not even going to suggest it because it's probably going to be really shit. But every other like English, every soccer team that does that has words to go along with it, whether it's for a player, whether it's whatever. Can we get something in that? Any words to do with Carlton in that chant? If anyone comes up with it, let us know at Navy Blue Corner or drop it in the comments down here on YouTube, because I think there's something in this, because that could be something we then do in-game as well. Like you've got the Collingwood chant that's annoying. It's already got a great tune to it. So if we can come up with some lyrics, come up with something that hits, that gets us up and about mid-game, I'm all about it. But what are your thoughts on the slow Carlton chant?
Yeah, I just think, like you said, there is, I'm sure every, football team over in Europe has their own thing that they do. Let's get our own thing as well. I think let's let Collingwood have the slow chant, in my opinion. Like it just felt a bit too mimicky for mine. I think we can come up with our own thing. It's going to take someone strong to be able to get through to everyone with a big chant, but I believe in us.
Yeah, there's something in it. I did like that for context-wise. It was great to just, no, Sydney. We're just going to steal exactly what you're doing, and we're going to make it louder.
Don't get me wrong. I was doing it as loud as I could.
Great in context there. However, maybe we need to come up with our own thing ourselves. Maybe there's something in that 7-nation army. I just need someone to write me some lyrics. We need some songwriters in there. Can someone make it happen? So we've moved on from the what do you want to see? We're going deeper. I'm going a bit negative, actually, to which is maybe unlike me, a little devil's advocate to see how we go, to see your responses from this, because these are things that have kind of been spoken about in patches. So I'm keen to get your thoughts and opinions on this. Firstly, do you have any concerns going into this game? And if so, what are they?
Wow. That's a broad question.
Exactly. I'll go broad. I've got some more specific examples coming up, but I just wanted to spread the waters a little bit.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like the specific players that can take over a game. Like when we spoke about Sydney last week, it was like Papley and Goulden, I guess, were the two that we kind of, and maybe Warner were like the three that we called out. And Goulden almost put them on his bloody shoulders and got them over the line. So that's probably the thing that I'm most worried about, is just like a ridiculous Petrarca game, ridiculous broken toe, gone game. But similarly to Sydney, when I look at this team, I'm like, there isn't as many guys that I'm afraid of as I thought that there would be. So, yeah, I guess what am I worried about? Individual brilliance taking the game away from us.
It is the real positive with Melbourne. And when you do look at their team, they've got those guys that can really win the game off their own boot, which is kind of what you need in finals. I do like that we've got those players too, so I'm not maybe as concerned. And maybe with a couple of theirs going in under Dunn, in an Oliver and a Gawn, it maybe helps us a little bit in that. I guess my concerns are probably a little bit more Carlton-based rather than looking at the opposition. I felt our strength going into the game last week, where I thought we would be dominant, was contested side with our midfield. Yeah. And I was concerned about Sydney with their outside game. And it almost flipped. We were better off turnover on the outside. They, I felt, kind of beat us at key stages around the ball in the contest, which was interesting. So my concern, if there is any, was I felt the midfield got a little beaten last week when I didn't expect us to.
Yep.
Cripps was down. Doc was down. Chera was fine. Hewitt was fine. Walsh was really good. But as a collective, thought our midfield didn't play as good as I know they have, with this game against Melbourne being such a midfield battle. You look at it, they've got a really strong defense. We've got a really good, strong defense. They've got some injuries to their forward line, and it's maybe not great. We've got some outs too. Still think we pip them there, just having Charlie in the forward line, but very similar. Yeah. Both teams, the big strength is defense and midfield. It's going to be a contested game. That is just where it'll be won. So that'd be my concern, that we're a little bit down last week. However, I'm pretty confident that we will be able to overcome that and have a massive one this week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. That's, wow. Yep.
Do you have any other concerns heading into this at all?
I guess it ties into kind of what I mentioned earlier about hoping that they kick a low score. Not that Harry's been lighting the world on fire in terms of hitting the scoreboard, and, you know, Martin would only normally contribute 0 to 2 per week. I'm just worried where the goal is going to come from. If Charlie gets that double teaming treatment, who's going to put a winning score on the board?
It is a tough one, particularly without, say, a Jack Silvani, who, when we get to talking about team changes, which we will shortly, that would have been such a simple change there for Harry. You're losing some height, but it's someone we've seen being able to, when Harry wasn't there, go down forward, impact, help out with some height in taking the key defenders away. Not having that, maybe not having really anyone to replace H with, it's concerning, but I'm definitely keen to dive into that as we get into the team changes. My only other real concern was just that we struggled to move the ball and exit from D50, I felt, in that Sydney game. There were times where Sydney really clogged up the corridor, didn't really let us do anything. And after a couple of mistakes from kick-ins, we sort of went into our shell and played really, really safe. Play on, kick it to the side where every player for Carlton currently is, which is what we did when we were playing poor football throughout this season. that's, I guess, a concern if that happens again. But it's much like the midfield thing. I think we're going to learn from it. We will be better, and there's going to be plans
Me too.
in place. We hadn't played finals. We didn't necessarily know for sure exactly what a finals game would be like. How much does the pressure really go up? How hard is it to execute what you were able to in the regular season? I think they've got a bit more of that experience, even though it is only one game. And I think that that's definitely going to help us figure out how we can continue to move the ball and overcome these issues.
Yep, I agree. I'm on both sides. I believe that we can improve on that and not make it a worry. And then I also wouldn't be surprised if we're like, well, did they work on this during the week? I'm not sure. Or did they not work on this, but discuss this?
Yeah. No, let's hope they did. But I'm going to continue to be negative because I want to maybe try and get some hot takes from Lockie. Because if I'm going to be devil's advocate, go very pessimistic and be very harsh for the sake of this question. Look, we were in an unbelievable good patch of form throughout this season in that sort of 9-run games where we finally got into finals, beat Port, beat Collingwood, even beat Melbourne, beat a lot of the bottom teams by a ridiculous margin. We're playing some great footy. We sort of started to trail off a little bit near the end of the season. I think you could say, even though we beat the Saints, it wasn't a great performance for 4 quarters. The Suns wasn't amazing. GWS, obviously, asterisks, but didn't perform well. Sydney got the win, again, like some of the others, but maybe for 4 quarters, it wasn't our best performance. Is there any concern that we maybe had our premiership winning form too early? Did we peak too early, like many maybe suggested, like a Collingwood did earlier in the season? Did we play our good football before finals? And are you at all worried knowing that we're maybe not currently playing our best form of football?
I'm not worried, but it's a very valid question. Good question from you. I'm glad that made it onto the run sheet. You've clearly put some thought into it to bring that one to the table. I think anyone that just looked at exactly. You're peaking at the right time. Anyone that just looked at the winning margins would obviously say that that's true. You got to remember the opposition that we were playing in those early stages. But I do agree that I guess it's hard to distinguish between just kicking a whole lot of goals that we were and actually just, were we necessarily playing better footy then to this last period? Like you'd say so based on the margins, but different opposition. There's no reason why we couldn't turn this around this week and have a big win and put a big score on the board. But yeah, it's a very tricky question because it's so easy to look at it either way.
No, I do agree. I think it is one where if first half last week, particularly first quarter, if we keep that margin and keep playing like that for the 4 quarters, win by 30 or so points, you definitely feel a lot more confident heading into this one that, wow, the Blues are playing some terrific form of football. Maybe, I guess, like a GWS did against the St Kilda in sort of the margin way, where you start to think maybe we can really do some damage. And Melbourne, 100%. We're winning this and we can go and make a grand final. But I kind of look at it a little bit the other way in that, look, we've shown we can play some really good football. We've also shown that, we maybe haven't been as amazing, but we've still got the wins in all of them. We've played good football where it's mattered, whether that was early in the game to get a lead that allowed us to hold on or step up when we're behind, get in front and still make sure we're ahead at that final siren. So I kind of look at it a little bit in the more positive light of it kind of doesn't seem to matter what situation we are in. I kind of back us to play when we need to. And it's finals. I think we touched on it in the review show of you're not going to be perfect. You're probably not going to play the greatest game of football you're ever going to because of the pressure, because of what it is. How many finals in general has a team played their best game of football ever? I don't know how many of those there are unless it's like a grand final
Yeah.
where you win by 100 plus points. A lot of the time it's a slog and you just got to be there at the right moments and take your chances, which was what impressed me last week. The set shots, when we needed a goal, we found a way to get one. So, yeah, there's a little bit to be maybe concerned about in that we aren't flying. Like if the game had ended maybe at that Collingwood game, then you're going, oh, shit, this is going to be an unbelievable thing. But weirdly, I'm still really positive on the fact that we still got results.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh, I have so much confidence going into this, as I guess we'll discuss towards the end when we give our, predictions and stuff. But yeah, I have so much faith.
100%. Keen to hear your thoughts on that as well, listeners. The other kind of negative question, but I think we'll find another way to spin this for the positive, like we always tend to, is that last week, looking at the Sydney game, we had some of our stars maybe not have their greatest game for us. We had Charlie, Doc, Cripps, and judging a bit, I guess, talking about how critical our forward line is with a few outs. I'm going to throw Owies into this because he had probably his worst game for the season last week. They all underperformed, obviously, against Sydney, didn't play some good football. How big is it for you that they turn it on this week? And can we win again if players like this that are quite important to how we play, our stars, Charlie, Doc, Cripps, if they aren't playing their best?
Of course, we can still do it again because we all believe in the guys that stood up last week to be able to do the same. But you obviously can't bank on it. It just goes without saying. Yeah. So, and I have so much faith that they will too. Like, particularly Cripper and Doc. Like I said earlier, like there's just a part of me that's like, I feel like Charlie could just get absolutely assaulted tomorrow with defenders and maybe won't be able to pull out the big bag that we're hoping for. So particularly Cripper and Doc, like, yeah, they're built for this. They were probably the two that had the most like anticipation on them, I guess, like because of the length of time and all that. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like, again, J-Rob and I were talking about this earlier. What must have been going through Rick's head, like, leading into this game? Like, I'm not saying that he would have thought this, but, like, imagine all the pressure of him 180 games before his first final, for us to lose that game by 10 goals and for him to have an absolute stinker. Like, people would be saying, take the bloody captaincy off him. Didn't deserve a Brownlow. Like, all of that shit in the media would have just been all that bullshit would have been out there. Like, so much pressure on him. And he still played fine to good, like you said. But, like, he was one of our players that we thought could put us on his shoulders last week. And I think he can very well do it this week. And he will.
It's an interesting point you do kind of raise there was there a little bit of too much anticipation? Did they maybe play the game a little bit too much in their heads, knowing it was such a big moment for them? I'm not saying that this was a massive component of why they maybe didn't play their 100% best games you'll ever see them play. But I think the positive again, like for the last question I threw out there, was that we were able to win and get a big impact from others. And the sort of lower tier player for us, in the politest way possible, they all stood up. And when they're not performing, someone else takes the reins. I think that's a real big positive, that we still find ways to win, even if a Cripps maybe doesn't have his 40 possession storming through packs kind of game that we saw. Like, that I'm sort of really thinking in that Collingwood game where we needed some big moments from him in the contested side. We didn't get that against Sydney, still got the win. But I also think that there's no way that these guys have another quiet-ish game, particularly Charlie. No way this guy, I reckon he's kicking 4. That is my bold prediction for this game. I can't see him kicking any less than 4.
That would be big.
I know it's going to be tough with Melbourne having such a strong defense, a lack of another tall being able to give him more of a hit out there. But I don't know. There's just something in this, I reckon, for Charlie, where it's going to be some good conditions. We don't have to worry about the rain, even though it didn't really even rain last week. I'm not sure they've played in these beautiful, fine conditions in a very long time. The ball's going to be perfectly delivered to a big Charlie in front of goal. So I think that these guys are going to have a big one.
Let's hope. Lower your eyes, boys. Please. Let's not be bombing it in like the Dees did last week. It was disgusting.
I agree. And I think it is also still very important, though, that they do stand up when you're playing a team like Melbourne that has those stars that you know that they're going to step up. You're playing good teams in finals. You need your best players to do it. But again, I'm very confident they will do it. To go more positive, get that negativity away, Lockie. Last week, it was Matty Cottrell, out of all players, the unsung hero, one of the lesser lights who made the game his. Who will be that player this week? Who is that bottom rung-ish player, those role players that, and you can only name one. I'm only allowing you to name one, and I want those in the comments to do the same. Right. Those
it's a risky one YouTube, for that then.
Put it in the comments. Those listening in audio form at Navy Blue Corner on the socials. Let us know who's the one that is going to step up that maybe you wouldn't expect them to in this game.
Oh, I really want to go a risky one, but I can only have one.
I want your number one, and then I'll allow a bit more discussion for another couple. Okay, but give me a main one.
I'm gonna go. My main one is gonna be Bam Bam.
Oof, I like it.
I reckon he's gonna surprise people. I called it out earlier in the week that I thought, I just like the idea of him, being not confirmed that he will be, but predominantly forward. Could just see him kicking a few, and we're gonna need some guys to stand up and kick goals. Maybe get some CBAs as well. Yeah, I feel like we always have such short-term memory of like him just being a nailed-on guy in this team, and it's like, oh, should he come in or not? Should he come in? Obviously, the role's going to be different, or we think the role's going to be different, but yeah, he's going to be so fresh.
He is someone that we've all kind of forgotten about. We kind of forgot about Hewitt, and then all of a sudden Kennedy gets injured. Yeah. Hewitt plays great form, and we've forgotten about Kennedy, and now here he is to get his opportunity. These are kind of the stories that I love in finals. It's not good that guys like Martin and Harry aren't playing, but it always presents an opportunity, and that's kind of what finals is about. There's always these little storylines that happen throughout every single game, and it's who's that guy that steps up that you don't expect it to be. So, no, I like that Matt Kennedy shout, and I'm going to be very arrogant for a second, unlike me. Very podcast first, I reckon. When I was trying to come up with this one, I went onto the Carlton website, got all the players listed out in front of me to make sure I didn't miss anyone. And I'm going through and I'm looking at the team that we've got in this week, and I'm looking at all the names, everyone that's playing. And I'll be honest, when I was coming up with the names, I'm going, everyone's a star. Yeah. Or I kind of expect them to do it. I'm looking at names maybe like a Brody Kemp. Is he someone? But no, it's Brody Kemp. We know he can pull it out. Is it Nick Newman? No, he's not niche enough. Matty Cottrell did it last week. You can't say Blake Acres. I'm looking through and I'm going, all these guys, I kind of expect them to have that in them, which is maybe a real positive looking at this team, that maybe those bottom tier-ish players have all shown enough. Cunningham has done a little bit, but the guy that I'm throwing out, I'm not going to fence sit on it, Lockie, because I've had this weird feeling all week that this boy is going to step up and kick 2 snags and be pivotal. Yeah, boy. I don't know why I said boy. He's a man. He's a man. Maybe it's because he's a little bit short, but I just had this weird feeling all week, and I don't know if it's your style premonition. I didn't necessarily have a dream about it, but I just have this dumb, weird feeling that Lockie Fogarty is going to have a massive game, kick 2 snags, and be the guy in that forward line that turns it on and gives us the win.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. No, why not? Why not? The one bloke that you reckon that's not a star. What a cop out. Cop that.
Well, who were the other ones that you were umming and ahhing about that could maybe be the guy that steps up? Because it seemed like you had a couple that you were controversially going to throw out.
I've got one.
You got to do it now.
I mean, you call Matty Cottrell the super sub, don't you?
I have been prone to, but I think I can put my hand up right now and say he's no super sub. He's best 22. That man is electric.
Yep. Well, I reckon someone is going to stamp themselves as the new super sub. Whether he comes in earlier because of injury or whether it's just a fourth quarter blitz. But give me a Paddy Dow game that makes literally every Carlton fan fall in love with him if they haven't already. Couldn't you just see that? Couldn't you just see him coming in fresh, fourth quarter into that midfield, 5 clearances and a goal, win the game off Paddy Dow's boot?
I would love to see it. I can picture it. My only issue is I don't think he's going to be the sub, which is maybe a spoiler for later, just because we've included Kennedy. We've added another midfielder kind of into it. I really think the sub's going to be Ollie Hollands, particularly with Blake Acres and his shoulder. Is that a concern? I think Ollie Hollands will be the sub, so that's why I don't see that as a possibility. But I would love to see it. If Dowie is the sub, come on, maybe a streaming goal like he did against Gold Coast back in the day from 50 meters. That would be an absolute delight. But my other name I have goes out to a man that we're discussing this on the selection table. And because there was a guy playing for Melbourne going in with a bit of an injury cloud. I think it was Sammy Edmund got way too specific trying to mention exactly where the fracture was. And it was just the weirdest thing I've ever heard. But Max Gawn, broken foot, fracture in his foot. And there's one man that I reckon can maybe be the unsung hero. And partly, can we all, as human beings on this earth, as Carlton supporters, we've got a day, can we track down the thickest, heaviest, legal studs any footballer is allowed to wear in AFL, give them to Pito so he can stomp away at Max Gawn's feet whenever he can, just to make sure that guy can't feel them by the end of the night. But I have a feeling Pito might just, I don't know what it'll be. I don't know.
I was thinking him as well.
Maybe he goes down forward and clunks one and kicks a match-winning goal. I don't think it will be that kind of style, but does he just stop Gawn somehow and be so influential in the ruck? I don't know. I'm feeling a big strength game from Big Brad.
See, I did think of him too. And the reason I didn't say him is because can't you just hear, like, say he does do that? Oh, well, Gawn was just injured. Like, it's not about Pito. It's about Gawn.
But
like,
what if
Pito...
Pito...
like people would say.
Also, you do see him stomp on his foot and he sort of causes the injury more. Does that sway? Well, he kind of did factor into the why there was that injury.
I could see that. And then that be the tribunal talk of the week. The stomping, like, that's going to be the new thing of next week. Yeah, I don't mind that. I could see that. He
walks on and he's got like Krusty the Clown sized feet, like boots on, and they're like, no, these are regulation. I don't know what you're talking about.
Stomp.
Oh, that's what I want to see. So yeah, someone needs to find out what like the legal weight and materials we can get that will do the most damage, but will also be the most legal. I'm not saying hurt anyone. I'm just saying it might be wet out there. Who knows? You've just got to be ready for all conditions and make sure.
He's a clumsy guy, Big Pito.
He could fall over at any stage. You've just got to really hope for that stability underneath. I think that's a key to it. But got one more question before we jump into the team changes. It's the fun bit we get to talk about, but I need to add in all these other bits so we can get to the good bits. Otherwise, everyone's going to turn off and they're not going to listen to these great questions. But let's shift gears. Let's talk a bit about our opposition because we've spoken a lot about the Baggers. We're previewing this clash. A lot has been made, Melbourne, about their forward line. They've had some issues. Add to that some injuries. There's no Petty, no Melksham, Van Rooyen, Ben Brown's injured. All these superstar players of the AFL. A-listers, some of the best footballers you'll ever see that they're crying about not having. My God, have we seen how sooky this football club is this week. But we've obviously got some outs. There's a lot of questions about the forward line. Going into this game, what do you think about their forward line? And what kind of changes do you see them making? Where are their goals coming from? And what do we have to look out for? Do you have any ideas of what their threats are in the forward line? Or do you just think that the forward line that Melbourne are going to put out there, it's a big strength for our defense?
I mean, I definitely think it's a strength. I think it was a strength even when Van Rooyen was playing. Yeah, like it's these are the words that we end up eating, but it just isn't that intimidating to me that they're going to kick a big score. I guess it's guys like Pickett that are the worry. I'm always just going to have nightmares about him after last year. Fritsch has been in weird kind of up and down form, like went on a big run where he didn't kick any goals. But yeah, I don't know. In terms of changing it up, I'm not really sure. Tom McDonald was, he was a bit yuck last week, as pretty much their whole forward line was, really.
I was so surprised, and precursor for the team changes, that Grundy didn't even get a look in.
I know. I thought he was going to.
I saw some tweets on it this week about it as well, and I thought, yeah, wow. When you're looking at Grundy or Tom McDonald, from what they offered last week, felt you like you were maybe going to get a bit more out of a Grundy, particularly this week with Gawn maybe having the injury as well. I thought it was just going to be a very simple change. They haven't gone that way, which is interesting, but they still do have some potent threats. I think the ones you named there, Fritsch and Pickett, can turn it on. Fritsch, always such a hard player to match up on. He's obviously plays that mid-size. He's so mobile, and normally he's a good shot for goal, even though he maybe isn't in the best form for it. Pickett can get a goal from anywhere, but weirdly, I don't think Melbourne's really had any good key forwards since Neatsy, who we were talking about before we started his podcast. But they kind of work a little bit better with that smaller brigade. And you throw in like a Neil Bullen and a Spargo that's been brought in. Like these guys, Spargo was my every single time Melbourne played, anytime goal scorer, chuck him in my multi because he was always decent odds. And I felt like he always bobbed up and got at least one. They have these little crafty guys, and looking at our defense, knowing that it is a little bit taller, is that any cause for concern that they've maybe just realized, look, Carlton's defense, I know they're mobile talls, but let's just throw a bunch of smalls in there, make it a bit more chaotic. I'm not sure if that's the way they're going. They can also throw a Petrarca forward, but look, that'll cause us some headaches because he's a good footballer. But they may really need him in the midfield, knowing our depth in our midfield. I'm not sure you'd really want to be moving Petrarca away from the guts for too long in this game, knowing how much the contested side of things is kind of where I see the game being won and lost. They brought in a Tomlinson. I know he's more of a defender, but with some height, and knowing we're not that tall in our forward line, he's a potential that could be thrown forward just for the sake of it. But I think height-wise, there's not too much to worry about, and that kind of makes me excited thinking about our talls, thinking about our intercept game. It could be something that we really look to exploit. And I know Melbourne will be thinking the same thing, knowing it's really just Charlie and DeConing to kind of worry about.
For sure. Oh, particularly going off the game, like the Pies game last week. Like if we can bring the pressure and force them to have inside 50s like they did, oh my God, who's going to take the most intercepts? It's going to be a competition.
It'll be a lot of fun. So let's dive into the team changes. Let's go with what we wanted to see, because the changes, I'll just rattle them off now. In is Kennedy and Motlop. Out, Mackay and Martin. We don't know who the sub is yet, but from those changes, what were your thoughts, and what were the changes that you would have made? Would you have done anything different?
Yeah, well, no, if Sauce isn't fit, then this is the changes that I would have gone with. I kind of stuck. I was going to stick with what I kind of mentioned on the pod earlier in the week. I felt like Cunningham just has not been bringing to the table as much as I would have hoped. And that's where I kind of thought that Sauce could come in as well in his place. And then maybe he would be the sub, like kind of similar to Dow. I could see Cunningham playing a fourth quarter and kicking a goal and being able to have midfield time and that kind of thing. I guess we just have to take their word on, like, you know, not wanting to, like, Sauce not being up to it. But I'm keen to hear your opinion. If, you know, do you think it's a big deal, a player not, because Vossi in the press conference was like, oh, it was great that Kennedy got to have a game under his belt, like that scratch game last week, but Sauce didn't. Like, do you have an opinion on whether that really matters?
Nothing ridiculously hot. I don't have a hot take on it. I don't have a big, strong opinion either way. I kind of agree with it. It's a semi-final. It's such a big game. Jack hasn't played in quite a while. There is a little bit of a difference between like training fit and match fit. I think you can pretty much get there without having to play a proper game, do a bit of match sim, see what it's like anyway. Some of these players, you look at throughout the years, how many stars have ever played a game of VFL football before going into the ones? No, they go straight into the ones. They're ready to play. I think with Sauce, he probably just hasn't had the build-up, and I really think that they would have wanted him out there. I've seen a couple of people say maybe Vossi showing that he doesn't like Sauce, as if we thought that all year when he wasn't maybe getting selected, and this is just another way of he prefers Kennedy over him. I kind of disagree. I feel as if Sauce was the best possible person you could bring in if fit, but it's such a big game, semi-final. We're treating this like we're trying to win a grand final. There is no chance in hell anyone at this football club is saying this is a free hit. We're building for next year. That's off the table. It's we're winning this. We need to go forward. Do you back in a guy that is 90% good to go, hasn't played a full game of footy under his belt? I don't know. I feel like they probably made the right call in a Kennedy over a Sauce match fit wise.
Yeah, I agree. I'm scared to ask this question to you, but I'll ask anyway.
Go for it.
I'm keen to hear your opinion. Let's say that we found out. So let's say we lose this week and the season's over, and then we find out next week that Sauce is actually gone.
As into another team?
Would that change would that then change your opinion, or would you still be like, okay, no, he was still not picked because of that? Just thinking about it.
I like the question. I don't think it changes my thoughts simply on Kennedy obviously played that scratch match against Melbourne last week. Sauce didn't. So it's still that match readiness that do you go a guy that's maybe better for your system by, I don't know, 20, 30%, but is 20, 30% less fit? And you're a little bit worried about, is he going to get through? Do we have to make an early sub? What's the case? I don't know. I think you go fitness over tactical for finals. You don't want the other thing. You've got the sub there for the sake of this, maybe risk taking.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't. The win-loss from that change, I don't think is so ridiculous. Plus, it does also feel as if Sauce is getting that contract. The 2 years is in front of him, so maybe that plays a bit in my thinking.
Yeah, it's fair. I don't know. It just feels like a lot of peculiar things. Now I'm being the conspiracy theorist, as others have done recently. Just with the dragged out contract thing. I know the contract's in front of him, as they say, and then I don't know. It's just hard because I was so confident that he was going to be picked. So yeah,
if you want to go,
it would have been so good to see him out there.
If you want to pass the tinfoil hat over to me, I'm happy to wear it for a second because...
Oh, yeah. I know you love the tinfoil.
If you want to get
we almost need a tinfoil segment.
Next season, we might have something. Give me your most batshit crazy conspiracy theory. There's been a couple of those this week from a couple of podcasts, and it's got some engagement. So maybe that's just the way we've got to do it now.
True.
By saying the dumbest shit possible and get real clickbait. Exactly. Some might not agree. I probably don't even agree. But
well, that's true. Yeah.
I'm about to say something insane, so maybe not. You just made me think that, look, I want to say right now, categorically, before anyone clips this, I think this is all done for the right reasons. The contract's in front of Sauce. He's going to sign. All good. But does part of you think that it's a bit weird to come out as a club and say, well, we've offered him a contract without him signing it, when they haven't done that or talked about contracts really for any players this season? Cookie's gone out in front of the fans to be like, well, we've offered it. Is there a little bit of a preamble of, we got to say this before he ends up going to another club of, well, we tried? Is there any part of that in it?
That's why I kind of just mentioned. That's why I just kind of mention it.
Yeah, well, it's sad. Would have loved to have seen Sauce. He would definitely have been straight in. Love to have seen him finally play a final. If you need a player like a Matty Cottrell to step up, Jack will do that in spades. Fortunately, he's not there. My changes, I didn't actually have Kennedy in the team, surprisingly, which might be very interesting.
It's fair.
It felt too teagy for me of get a guy that can kind of mark the ball and play him in the forward line. And I didn't love the idea of it. So I went ultra dynamic, ultra flexible. Motlop obviously was in my in. And then I brought in Fisher, which seemed to be a very unpopular opinion when myself and Paolo introduced him on the selection table as our big ins for the week. The reason that I thought about him was, look, you can't really replace the height anywhere. And so I wanted to do what we've been doing all season and stick with what we know and play how we've been playing. Don't try to get too experimental with a Kennedy down forward that we just haven't seen under Michael Voss. So my thinking was, look, Motlop comes in, TDK plays a bit more forward. He's that, second tall in the forward line to help Charlie, and then just go really small in a way that we saw this season when Harry was out of the squad. And then to fix the issue of us struggling to move the ball out of D50, I thought Fisher, that's what he was really good at when he came into this team off halfback. In pretty much every single one of his games, he had probably been one of our best. Against Melbourne, I thought he was super handy. St Kilda, one of our best. I thought, and then it was really just that the GWS game where he probably played a bit of a poor game, had a couple of big highlighted mistakes. All of a sudden, whole fan base says, that's it, Fisher's dropped. Whereas a week prior, no one was calling for Fisher to be dropped. So I'm thinking, knowing how well everyone else defends there, everyone else can lock down, do the defensive side of things. They are a bit tall anyway. This is where Fisher can come in, be a bit more of the pace, because I felt we needed someone to just tuck the ball under their arms, gain 10, 15 meters just by running. I thought that could have been Fish. And then also allowed you to flip the magnets around. We've got enough defensive cover. Fish plays in the forward line, adds to the dynamic forward line that we've got there, or he can go on the wing and Cottrell can play a bit more forward, or just it allowed so many other guys to move around there. Obviously, they haven't gone down that route and they've gone with a Kennedy. It's not my favorite thing that they've gone for, but you back them in because so far everything they've kind of tried seems to have worked, and I can understand the theory behind it. We need a height. We need someone to be another marking target like a Martin in that forward line. There's pressure, adds to the midfield. Maybe it allows Cripper to move into the forward line at times. It's not the worst option, and I don't absolutely hate it. Just wouldn't have been what I would have done. But obviously, I am not working for any football team. So how much does my opinion actually matter? How much is it better than Michael Voss and the selection team? I guess, what would your thoughts been on a Fisher inclusion? Would you like it? Would you have not? And more talking about the forward line. Obviously, we've got Kennedy in, but what's your thoughts on how our forward line will look in the absence of a Martin and Harry?
I wanted to make another conspiracy theory joke, but now I've realized I'm too scared of getting clipped and.
No, you can do it. I think this is deep enough in the pod that
you
no
think
one
so?
will clip it. I think so. I'll clip it. Don't worry. What's the timestamp on this one?
On the Fisher thing, mate, open your eyes. He's traded. He's already been traded. We already know that he's going. He's not going to be playing again. No, I don't really believe that. It's a joke. Don't clip it at that point.
I'll clip it.
I wouldn't have minded that. Well, so then do you think, would you make him the sub then? You said you think it'll be Hollands, but would you go with Fisher?
It's not the worst thing.
Messing with your run sheet.
No, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm kind of happy with the sub in any way. Probably, actually, let me get it up. I feel like I'm forgetting the fourth person. Sam Durden. No, I didn't actually see his name. I didn't get that far. I stopped at Fish. No, Sam Durden, no.
I'd be happy with any of the three, yeah.
I probably wouldn't be happy with Dow because I think we've got enough midfielders with the Kennedy inclusion. It depends how they maybe play it. Maybe Kennedy plays 0 midfield minutes, so they need Dow for a bit of something different. I know he's not 100% inside mid. He tends to be that guy that moves throughout the stoppage. I probably think Holland's number one. I'd go Holland's 1. Dow 2, Fisher 3, probably,
Thank
actually.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a logical step.
Yeah, I'd almost, it's such a tricky thing, the sub, isn't it? I'm just like, it's hard for me to see that like super impactful Holland's fourth quarter, like what that looks like. Whereas for Fisher and Dow, like I've got that in my memory. Like Hollands is just such a consistent player that gives over the whole game. Like if he gets subbed into the game 10 minutes into it, I'm like, beauty. But, yeah.
Weirdly, I think the sub of a Hollands is less he comes on, wins the game for us, more he comes on, allows other guys to play in different positions, if that makes sense. It's one cover for Akers if he gets a knock and we've got another guy that can play wing. But I made the argument on the selection table. It probably wouldn't have been my 100% changes anyway, but I wanted to do it for argument's sake. I had him in. I actually threw Chincotta out very stiff, but because I was bringing in Fish, I
did say
had the worst player from last week out of the team. Sorry, Chincotta. I think you'll have a blinder this week, though. But it was kind of like, well, if Hollands comes in, it allows Cottrell to play more in the forward line. It allows Doc to maybe play in defense if you need him to, or he can stay on the ball. So that's where I can kind of see Hollands coming in, allowing others to go elsewhere. And you just know you're getting that defensive run that can cover the whole ground. But I do 100% understand your point of, well, Hollands at the starting bounce and the final siren, he's kind of got the same level of fitness. It's the impact almost feels like it's going to be consistent throughout the game. But I don't know. I like the idea of the legs or the moment of an Ollie Hollands touched on the line.
Imagine Chincotta, God forbid, going down injured early in the game, and big Sam Durden gets subbed on. Bang! We're going the 5 talls.
Or is Durden the sub because the lever that they want to pull is Gov to the forward line?
Holy shit!
Is that it?
Pass me the foil.
But speaking about that, any other things you can see us doing in the forward line to replace the height of Harry and what Martin does? Obviously, Motlop's there. Kennedy's there. Any other little things you can see us moving around or guys that'll spend time in that forward line? Who's kicking the goals?
Well, we spoke about Pitt having such low time on ground in the last game. If I, was someone that did research for this podcast, I would have looked at what his time on ground has been over the last couple of seasons. But I guess the assumption is just that him and TDK play more, right? And TDK just plays more forward. It makes sense. I think so. Not that kick a bag, TDK. What are you waiting for?
I believe Pitto had the lowest time on ground last week. I believe it was 60-something%. Someone else can look that up. I'll have a look now and throw back to you. Is the best way to do this. Yeah. I don't mind. I think, both of those definitely have to play a lot more on ground. What else? Is there anything else you can see happening?
As Vossi spoke about in his press conference.
61%. Sorry, 61% for Pitt. Always next on 66. I'm not counting Motlop's 25.
I think with the emphasis on cohesion, there's not going to be any defensive magnets moved. That would be a crazy thing for Voss to talk so much about how it's all about cohesion, and then
so you don't see like a Kemp going forward that we saw against GWS at all. Because he was the one, not McGovern, that went forward. So does that make you feel if there was a defender to go forward, who do you think it'll be and who would you want it to be if they did? If all of a sudden we're 30 points down and we can't get the ball to Charlie, we've got to make a move.
Yeah.
Gun to your head, who goes forward?
I know. I guess I could see it happening if it was we're looking at a disaster and then something has to change like that. You're right. I guess I was thinking of it as a starting bounce thing. I'm still going to say McGovern.
I think I said this on the selection table show. I said McGovern is a better forward for sure. I think if we want impact forward, he's the guy. But I also think shifting him from defense, we lose more. because Marchbank's game's been better when he hasn't been that kind of second defender. But then weirdly, I'm thinking, well, they don't have that many tools. So is it really the worst thing if a Gov ended up having to go forward? Are we losing a lot because of who we're playing against? You know, what happened? If we did that move last week, I'd probably be more concerned. But hopefully that isn't a lever we have to pull because everything else is still flowing well. And that's not a good one. I did not enjoy that, Lockie. But I'm looking at the way we've played throughout this season. We've had so many injuries to so many parts of this field, and every single time, next man up, we found a way. So I'm confident that it doesn't matter what team we put out there and what formation, who's tall, who's small, does not matter. They find a new way to get goals and win games of football. Weird question.
Yes.
Kiddo was 61% time on ground. What do you reckon TDK's was? This is just I didn't imagine it to be this, so I was confused.
I'm going to assume that it's not that high either. So I'll say like 73.
71, very close. I would have expected it to be higher if Piddo's was so low, but no, it's very.
It just felt so rare that either of them. Well, not that I can remember Piddo going forward at all, but TDK hardly spent any time forward.
Yeah, no, I don't recall that, but I think you'll be there this week.
So do I.
Let us know in the comments, though. What are you doing in the forward line? Are you throwing Cripps in there at any stage because you've got a Kennedy? What moves are you making to make up for the absence of Martin and Mackay? I'm keen to hear the listeners' thoughts. We do, though, need to touch on the opposition because they have some outs, and I kind of want to gauge your thoughts on their team, what you make of it. Obviously, Melbourne have brought in Tomlinson, Spargo, and James Jordan. Out is Van Ruin. Brayshaw, who we've managed to not really touch on, which has been a big topic this week. Hibbard and Laurie, the sub, who I will be 100% honest with you here, Lockie. Never heard of that man in my life. Don't know who that is. Has he ever... Did he play? He played last week? Don't know who that is.
He was the sub last week. Yeah, look, I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to do a deep analysis on this. I touched on it earlier. I mean, to your Bailey Laurie thing, I was very surprised watching last week with a Melbourne supporter who said that he doesn't really rate Spargo. I still assume that I assume Spargo was still a walk-up starter in this team every week, so I couldn't believe that he wasn't already in. So yeah,
Definitely
they're bringing in 3 guys that are,
form.
you know, they're all in and out kind of players. Like Tomlinson is not a, they're all in and out kind of players. So, but you know, particularly Spargo and Jordan they can do exciting things.
It's an interesting changes for sure. And you've also got Oliver with the knee. You got Gorn with the foot. They're going in a little bit underdone, which is going to be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. I think, Brayshaw's obviously a massive one for them. He looked good in the midfield since he's been thrown back in there. And that's kind of as I've said a lot, where the game's kind of won. Both teams so heavily contested. You've seen every single game that we've played against them. It's been tight footy. And the Demons, they're less of a kick team. They're a lot more of a run and carry with that quick handball playing through the corridor. That's just the Dees bread and butter. He's a big part of that. Him being out definitely helps us. I think Jordan comes in, helps play a bit more on the wing as well. There's a bit of that role player. Their changes aren't massive. Yep. Ours probably aren't that massive. Very similar in the just trying to find a guy to play a role and seeing what can happen. Makes me a bit more positive knowing that I guess Oliver and Gorn are a bit injured, but I think everyone in the AFL playing right now has a niggle, has something, whether it's been reported on or not, and it's finals, you're going to play through it regardless. So I don't know if their output is going to drop that much. Honestly, I kind of doubt it because they're that good footballers. Even their average is probably going to be better than others. Probably the only other thing I want to touch on is kind of a positive to wrap this up, is talking a little bit about the media this week on Melbourne, because there's been a lot of pressure, I guess, about the straight sets, and all the media attention has been about Brayshaw and Maynard. Do you think that that's a positive thing, that they've kind of taken the pressure off everything to do with Carlton. We have not been spoken about once in the media about what can Carlton do. Oh, they didn't maybe play amazing against Sydney. What are they going to do with like? It has saved Harry Mackay something shocking because that incident doesn't happen. True. I think the whole week they're talking about Harry Mackay's misses. All of a sudden, who's talking about Harry? Because that has occupied everyone's brains for the whole week. Do you think that this kind of plays into our hands, that all the chatter and even Melbourne have kind of played into it quite a bit? It's all been on them, to touch on that first point we kind of talked about?
Yeah, I'll give an annoying answer because I do think so. And then I think that the Melbourne version of this podcast, they're saying that it'll galvanize them and bring them together, and they're going to play for him and all that kind of thing.
That's if they don't stop crying before they walk on the field. Jesus Christ. There's an Ian rant before we close, I reckon.
Ian, really? Okay, that's big.
It's not big, but it'll hype us up. I think
that's good.
Because I think
I do agree though. No, I have nothing else to add. I agree. I think it is. I think it is good that it has the spotlight hasn't been on us.
Are you feeling nervous? How are you? What are your emotions going into this game? Are you excited? Are you shitting yourself? Where you sit right now?
Yeah, very similar to last week. Like, still just feeling very calm and excited. Just can't wait to get there tomorrow. And I'm sure again, once I see the G, once we're marching over there, then it will hit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm definitely not as calm as I think I was last week because I was sort of telling myself that it was just, take it in. This is the moment you've been wanting. Just sort of embrace the day. This week, I don't know. There's a little bit of nerve, probably because I was way too arrogant and confident last week that we just beat Sydney, whereas this is obviously going to be a bit more of a challenge in my head. I think Melbourne are a better team. Obviously, everyone does, but that's sort of the little bit more tension. But I think the overall feeling, which not that it wasn't there last week, but last week was just kind of like this calm, I'm just here to take in the experience. I'm just excited. Having felt everything that we felt last week, seeing the crowd, having that moment, I just want more of them, and I just want it to never stop. So I just can't wait to get to the G. It's going to be very excited. And no, it's not even like a little rant. It was just, I'm not going to get into the Maynard Brayshaw discussion because too much, but I was just like, I went into the game just like, okay, let's beat Melbourne, whatever. Like, I don't have too many positive or negative feelings towards them, but I just thought the carry on from the Melbourne camp, whether that's fans, whether that's the actual players or what's getting leaked out, all week was just like, oh my God, can you boys just stop sooking? Bloke comes over with flowers to apologize. Like, okay, that's just what I feel like you're probably going to do in that situation, to like storm out of the room because, oh, he's here, I can't deal with this, and then have a sook about it and leak it to the media that you're not happy and you told him to leave. And like, they just kept sooking. Every single Melbourne affiliate that was coming out, we just kept sooking about the Brayshaw thing to just in a nauseating level that all I was thinking all week was, oh, I just can't wait to smash these guys. Just absolutely beat them. It says it's not going to rain. I think it will be from some tears from Melbourne that's happening right now. Because it's just been... Is that what you're meant to do? Is that what you're meant to do? Do you need to do the lean back too? I'm joking on that last one. That was a piss take out of that dickhead St Kilda supporter. But no, now I feel there's a bit more tension in it this week, which I'm excited for because I kind of got a bit annoyed from the socials from Melbourne, whereas before this week was a bit more of just a placid, yeah, I don't mind Melbourne, so it should be a good game, whereas now I'm a bit more fiery, which is a bit of fun. But it's going to be a massive game, semi-final.
It is.
How about this? First semi-final on the pod. It's about time we win a semi-final, Lockie, because I want to be back here next week talking about another win. But that is going to wrap up this episode. Let me know your thoughts on everything we've covered, on thoughts on the team changes. Who is going to be the ones to kick goals in the forward line this week? What are your little changes in there? What do you have to worry about from Melbourne? How are we going to win this game? And who is the unsung hero? That's what I want to know. But we'll be back here talking about it next week after we've beaten the Demons in another massive, massive finals game. Up the Baggers. See you guys next time.